Hey, this is Irving Gomringer, founder of Perla. Perla represents my journey. Born in Peru, raised in LA. The name itself combines the two places that shape me. My brand is all about blending streetwear with simplicity and luxury, something LA is known for, with high quality garments for those who value style and substance. My vision is to amplify Latino voices in that industry. By rocking with the brand, not only are you making your look stand out, but you're also helping me and all Latinos to be represented and celebrated. So if you're ready to elevate your fit and rep the culture, check out my website at www.per-la.com and on Instagram at LA Brand Perla. Thanks for supporting Perla and being part of the movement. 10% of the profit will be donated to Action Against Hunger. Thank you.
You are now listening to Ride With Me, the Fraternity Podcast.
Welcome to Ride With Me, episode 122. Today is December 7th, 2024. And right before I introduce my guest, I want to start with the reminding my listeners that there is a hotline. You can leave a voicemail. You can call it anonymous and leave a voicemail. You can leave a question for myself, for a guest, and I'll try my best to answer it. The number is 818-806-8595. Again, the hotline number is 818-806-8595. I will be playing your question in an episode. The socials are Ride With Me Podcast on Instagram and FTA Podcast on TikTok. If you listen on Spotify, please hit that follow button. Give it a 5-star review. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Pandora, and knock yourselves out, guys. Now let's introduce my guest, the host of Mikey On Mute.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on today.
No problem, man. Yeah, I started listening to your podcast. What was it, about like 2 months ago? So you started about 2 months ago, right?
Yes, it's been about 2 months that I've been doing the podcast
Yeah.
now, so still fresh on it, but going strong.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that right now to getting to know you and stuff like that. But I'd like to start with current events and stuff like that. We've had multiple earthquakes here in California a couple of days ago. I believe we had like a 7.0. There was a tsunami warning. Nothing. I guess they canceled the tsunami warning after about an hour or two. But yeah, we got multiple off my phone. I had to put my phone on silent because it kept on ringing every 5 minutes. A new aftershock, a new aftershock, a new aftershock. Even yesterday on Friday, aftershocks after aftershock. I'm like, damn, we were getting rattled up here in California, man. Now we didn't feel any of that because they were pretty much California close to Oregon, so we didn't feel any. But still, I mean, damn, have you ever lived through an earthquake, Mikey?
I have not, so I'm more in the Midwest, and I don't have earthquakes. So I hear about this, and it shocks me every time that it's a real thing that people live through on a daily. I know that I live kind of where the air hurts my face. You know, it's a warm day here if it's in the mid to high 20s, but I guess that's the trade-off for not having to live through earthquakes. So it's crazy to me. My dad lives closer to like Arizona and all that stuff, so the different weather problems that people have it's incredible to me.
It's a trip to hear how, like you said, California has earthquakes, but then there's other parts of the country that has tsunamis, tornadoes, freaking like hurricanes, and like it's crazy. Like didn't Florida just get recently hit with the nasty hurricane, like the East Coast?
Yeah, they had a pretty bad one not that long ago, and seeing videos of that, I can't even imagine. I have lived in the Midwest here for my entire life. And so while I've visited these places, I've never visited when something's happening. So it's still surreal to me that this is a thing that people live through on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. I mean, I lived through the. My kids were making fun of me the other day. Dad, you've never even survived an earthquake. What are you talking about? Like, when you've never lived through one. What are you talking about? We lived through Northridge earthquake, and the the one thing I learned about Northridge earthquake in '94 was that never sleep naked, because one of the when we lived in these apartments, pretty much the apartments had it was like a square type apartments, and in the middle used to be a pool, so they sealed it off. So now it's like a patio kind of area, and one of the neighbors ran out butt naked.
Oh no!
So I made sure since then never sleep naked, because you never know. You never know.
That's a good plan, because that's not how you want to be caught on that. So here you do it, because if you have to run outside, it's going to be freezing, and you don't want to be caught outside in anything less than at least your normal pajamas.
Right. So I mean, no, I'm glad no one doesn't seem like anybody got hurt up north, so that's good. But enough about
that is very good to hear.
Enough about earthquakes. What are your plans for today or this weekend?
Today I have a day to just kind of relax. We did some traveling. My wife and I did some traveling this past week, so it's good to kind of have a day to unpack, to relax, get a few things in order. We have a friend's child's birthday party tomorrow, so that's kind of our fun adventure. But otherwise, today is our kind of relaxed day.
Yeah, my boys have since they're in. I've been saying it for months now, for a year now. The boys are in the my boys are in the high school marching band, and today they have 2 parades. So pretty much after this episode post, I will be at 8 in the morning at freaking the school, getting ready to jump on the bus, because they need to be at a certain part of the town by 9 o'clock and start walking. And then again another one at 8 o'clock at night. So 2 parades, man.
So you have both sides of the spectrum on the day. That's a full day right there.
So we're pretty much going to have maybe a 2 to 4 hour gap in between both parades, where we can go have dinner or something, and then get back to the school and on to the next parade. It's a trip, because last year's parade, we actually had when we were getting ready to, the parade already had the part of the parade where the band was in was already over. We were already walking towards the school, and there was this house at the corner of the school, and the guy outside asked the kids, "What school are you guys from?" And the kids answered Sierra Vista, and the guy just started saying, "Your guys' football team sucks. Your baseball team sucks." And we're like, what? Okay, boo, And then he started talking smack about, you guys are all here illegally, and I'm like, what the hell?
Wow, that escalated.
Dude, these are a bunch of kids you're talking to. Well, my wife ended up throwing the freaking, the mama bear claws out, dude, and she pretty much, she told them to shut the hell up. And then when we were walking to the front, there's only so much you can do. So we got to the front. She actually found a security guard and told security guard walked to the police officer that was kind of guarding, and told him. So that police officer went and spoke to him and told him, "Hey, dude, these are kids, bro. So we're hoping we don't see that SOB tomorrow."
Yeah, fingers crossed. There is definitely a line you don't cross, especially when it comes to kids. Have some decency, regardless of what you may feel internally. Just do everyone a favor and keep your mouth shut for a little bit.
It's ridiculous, man. So hopefully that doesn't happen again tomorrow. But yeah, man, freaking what do you call it? Mikey, I mean, let's get to know you, man. You say you're in the Midwest?
Yep. So I'm in Wisconsin. So it's kind of tucked in between Minnesota, Michigan, and Illinois. We are in probably, right now at least the hottest football division in the year. So at least 3 of the 4 teams. The Bears don't really count towards that. But
the Bears. Hey, I can't say shit when it comes to football. My Cowboys suck this season. And
it's been without Dak, there's not much you guys can do. So. Cooper Rush can only take you so far. So
I mean, it's not like they were protecting Dak, man. Like he kept on getting sacked. It's like, whatever. I still believe they overpaid him. They could have paid someone out. They could have used his salary to pay 2 other good players. But it is what it is. Who am I? I'm nobody.
I hear you. It's crazy to look at the contracts they hand out. So I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. I am very surprised that they paid Jordan Love that much. I believe in the guy. I think he's got a good future and everything, but this year has not been very good proof after paying him. I think he has like 11 or 12 interceptions on the year, and so it was a struggle. But a few days ago, we got to watch some exciting Thursday night football. So, I mean, didn't wind up beating the Lions, but it was a good time.
Yeah. Did you see the whole BS going on with the referees and the Chiefs games and stuff? The Raiders game, it was like a bullshit call from what I'm seeing.
It's one of those things that bad refereeing has been something like a part of football for decades, but in the last year or two, ranked up.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous.
But yeah, so I've been in Wisconsin my whole life, through and through, dealing with the nice cold weather here. But it's not a very far trip, less than an hour for me to get to Lambeau if I want to.
Oh, so. Nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, dimming my phone down.
No, it's okay.
I'm dimming the phone because it's already at 95%. What the hell's going on here? We've already been on the phone for 10 minutes. What are you talking about? Anyway, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
So yeah, man. So you're down the street. I've never been to a Cowboy. I've never been to the Cowboy Stadium. I've never been to a Cowboy game. So, but it is what it is. So you say you live you're by Lambeau Field?
Yeah, it's probably about a 30-minute drive, so very close.
Nice.
Lambeau is an experience because unlike most of the other fields, Lambeau is really in the middle of a neighborhood. It's not, its own separate thing that's got miles and miles of highway around it. You just kind of come across it. It's really cool.
No, but a buddy of mine that I met out here, I think either has a house in Wisconsin. But he took a selfie one day from his front porch, and you can see the stadium in the back, like it's right there. Yeah.
It's so strange. We have that. I was just down in Milwaukee not too long ago, and the Brewers Stadium. I'm not a big baseball person, but that's another one that is just kind of like we were picking up something off a marketplace. And suddenly we're right next to the baseball field, and I'm like, this is so crazy to me that they're just in these neighborhoods. It's very cool.
Right. Yeah. No, that's cool, man. That's real cool. So, being a Packers fan, did that get you into the 15 minutes on time early Lombardi time?
Absolutely. So I know that Lambeau is big on, tailgating, get there early. You got, they actually had to a few years ago limit it to, I think, 4 hours before the game because people were taking high advantage of going there, at 8 a.m. for a night game or something like that. And you're pretty well in the bag at that point. So
yeah, I heard.
Between tailgating, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Between tailgating and then my dad raised me to be a Packers fan, taught me about football. And my dad's the one that really instilled in me, hey, be 15 minutes early everywhere you go. I think it started off as a talk about like going for job interviews.
Yeah.
And it just became more of a life lesson because it was constantly brought up. And so it was one of those things that I said, okay, yes, everywhere I go, 15 minutes early. And that just kind of became how I approach life. Dude,
I honestly have driven my family crazy with the 15 minutes, man, like the on time, because they, it's like, no joke, just maybe like a month ago, I lost my shit. You know what, man? Because what I do is I wait for them to all get ready. And then pretty much, if we have to leave, if for example, mass. So if mass starts at 10 o'clock, we need to leave by 9:45 because it's just down the street. It's not far. So we need to leave by 9:45 or I try to be there either at 9:45 or leave the house by 9:45 and give us plenty of time. So the last 45 minutes, it's me getting ready. But it was like 9:01 and wait, whoa, you guys aren't even ready yet. What's going on? So I literally lost my shit where I didn't even go with them to mass. And they're like, why'd you get so mad so easy and stuff like that? It's like, we need to be on time. What's the point of going to, like, there's people that walk in mass like at 10:30. Like, well, by then, what the fuck? Like,
oh my goodness. Why even go at that point?
Exactly.
If you're going to be that late still.
Exactly. So, but that's something that goes back to like memory, like your past. I mean, you have yours as your dad always told you, hey, you have to be on time and blah, blah, blah. Right? Mine was, shit, we missed the bus and now we have to wait for another bus. And because we, you know, for a long time, you know, my mom didn't have a car. So we would have to walk to the bus stop. And there was one time, no joke, for the people that live in Oxnard and you guys know Oxnard, imagine you're in the second grade and you walk from the Oxnard airport all the way to the Oxnard College. It's a nice walk. I mean, honestly, driving it, maybe it's like a 25-minute drive, maybe. We walked it one day. We freaking walked it one day. So that's when I got no, man. Once I started learning how to read the bus schedules and everything, I'm like, okay, well, I need to be here by 9. So I need to find the bus that's going to get me there by 9. Okay, so I got to get this one, get the 1A to get to the 1B to take the 1C. Just so I would leave my house like freaking 2 hours early just so I can get to my destination on time.
I hear you. You're planning to be early, almost to being early. Like you want to be extra early, and it's such a unique experience, whether it's taught to you or a learned experience, like when you have to hit the bus or whatever, you know. Did you
like back? I don't know if you ever watched SpongeBob. There was this one episode that I freaking laughed so hard because SpongeBob goes and gets Patrick, and he say, "Okay, what's going on? We're late." He say, "Late? We're late. We're late for being early." When they get to the school and there's no one there, like he said, "Wait, we're
right."
So like, no, we're running late for being early.
Exactly, and it's such a unique dynamic. I think that there are either the people that you're going to be there 15 minutes early, or the people that swear they're going to be on time. Maybe it's a couple minutes after, and that's kind of how the dynamic is. And you know, my marriage and everything like that, we balance each other out because my wife is very much no, let's be on time. If it's going to be a few minutes after, no big deal. And I'm like, what do you mean no big deal? No, we have to be there already. And so it's very interesting to see the dynamics play out in the world.
Yeah, no, it's a trip because the family always knows. Oh, the Martinezes will be here on time. The Martinezes will hold our seats. I told my wife, you're not holding shit. You know, the Martinezes. So one time it was my for those of you that listen to the podcast, you guys damn well know who Officer Ricky is. It was his birthday. And I told my wife, why are we going to be in a hurry? We're always the first ones there. Like, everyone always shows up like 2-3 hours later. I don't know why, but that was the one time that everyone decided to be on fucking time. We were the ones that were like an hour late.
Of course, that's the time that everyone decided that.
The one day that I'm like, fuck it. I'm milking the clock. It is what it is. Everybody shows up late. We were the last ones. What the hell? So, here's what it is. But,
right.
So you said your dad, taught you the whole be on time. Pretty much sounds like he was a good role model when it came to being on time. How was your relationship with your parents?
So with my dad, it was good starting as far as like growing up. He taught me a lot about how to be responsible when it came to jobs and life, and was teaching me a lot of things that maybe now looking back are a little bit toxic, but it's kind of what he was raised. He was raised in a very strict Catholic household in Chicago area. And so he instilled some really good things in me. And we had a pretty good relationship up until about the teenage years. And then when my parents divorced, there was some animosity, and I didn't talk to my dad for quite some time, from about 17 until, it was probably almost a 10-year gap where we barely spoke to each other. And that was really tough. And now we're at a point where we've been able to reconcile, talk a few things out. Both of us take accountability. and now we have a really good relationship. It's tough because now he lives across the country. He lives in Arizona, but we still have a really good relationship. So with my dad, it's been up and down,
Right.
but I am very, very proud of where we are today.
Well, I'd rather have an up and down relationship with a father than not have one at all. You're just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very thankful each day that he's still in my life and I can still have that. With my mom and I had such a great relationship growing up.
Okay.
She was such a special person and taught me a lot of things in life when it came to empathy, when it came to being a good person. Where do my morals sit? What are my values in life? These were things my mom taught me. She had a daycare in our house growing up, so I was around a lot of kids, got to get that social experience even outside of school. And it taught me some responsibility to help with younger kids and all of that. Unfortunately, my mom passed away in 2016 due to brain cancer.
Oh, sorry about that, man.
But, thank you. I appreciate that. I always say I got my stubbornness from my mom. And she was stubborn in the best way. Like, she would not give up, that kind of stubborn. My favorite way to describe my mom's toughness and stubbornness is they diagnosed her in February of 2009, and they said, hey, we don't know if you're going to make it past 6 months. You might not make it till Christmas. And then my mom fought for 7 years because she was stubborn in the best way, and she really wanted to prove these doctors wrong. I can't imagine it's easy to give somebody a timeline, like, here's how long we expect you to live.
Right.
But thank goodness my mom was able to be on the other side of that and prove them wrong.
Yeah, I heard that podcast episode where you're talking about your mom, and it's like you said.
Yeah.
I'm sure you just said it right now. You said they gave her a few months, but she lived how many years?
7 years.
7 years.
So
yeah,
they diagnosed her in February of 2009, and they said maybe 6 months. They weren't sure if she was going to make it till Christmas, so that's why they kind of leaned towards 6 months. And instead of 6 months, we got 7 years out of mom, which I'm thankful for each additional day that mom was here with us. And like I said, she taught me so many good things. Where my dad taught me kind of the professional, how to be a good helper and worker and everything like that.
Right.
My mom taught me how to be a good person.
There we go. Okay. All right. That's nice. That's awesome, dude. So, I know you said I know on your podcast you mentioned you have kids. So did they have a good relationship with their grandparents?
Yes. So I have 2 boys. They're 13 and 16. I just had to think there for a second. Yeah, 13 and 16. That memory starts to go, man. I don't know where it happens, but
I've said for a couple of years that after 30, your check engine light turns on. So
yeah, it's been on for a bit now here. So they have a good relationship. My 13-year-old doesn't remember my mom a whole lot. It was about 8 years ago, so he was pretty young when she passed. My oldest has good memories with her, and so that's something really special I like holding on to.
Right.
And they both have a really good relationship with my dad. I love seeing it. We have shared our love of different things with football. My youngest likes to go against the grain, so instead of being a Packers fan, he's a Vikings fan. And so we have a house divided every once in a while, but it's been great. We've gone to Packer games together.
Nice.
And my dad has always made sure to, even during the decade when him and I weren't talking a whole lot, he made sure that my boys at least knew who he was and that he was there for them.
Right.
I didn't want to take that relationship away from them while I was dealing with my demons.
Right. So your boys, I want to talk a little bit more about your boys, since you have 2 boys that are pretty much similar to the ages of my boys. The gaps, like you said, 13 and a 16-year-old. I have a 15 and a 17-year-old, soon to be 18. And do you do things with one that the other one doesn't do, and vice versa? So, for example, my oldest thinks that the youngest is the favorite because, like right now, for example, before you told me you were ready to go, we were watching wrestling. The other one, no interest in wrestling, right? I say, I can be watching shit on TV and the youngest one will sit there and watch it with me, right? The oldest one, not so much. So it's a lot harder for me to get the older one to do things with me that the young one, he'll do anything, right? So I was shocked that a couple of days ago, my oldest, he didn't go to school, he wasn't feeling well, and he said, Dad, let's watch Smallville, because we started watching Smallville again. And I was like, all right, cool. And I enjoyed the time that he sat right there next to me and we just watched 2 episodes of Smallville. But it's very hard for me to do anything with him. I mean, like I said, I'm not into some of the things that he's into, and I've tried. And then, like I said, at the same time, I can be watching shit, and the other one's like, I want to do what you're doing. Do you have that with your boys?
Yeah, absolutely. So my youngest, my 13-year-old, is right there with yours that's up for everything. He wants to be involved, whether it is a board game, whether it's watching something random on TV that I'm watching, and then he wants to discuss it. He is all for, hey, how can I be involved? And really likes that energy. Whereas my 16-year-old is almost like allergic to people, very much likes to hide in his room and, stay on his phone. And I understand he's 16. I was 16 once, but, it's tough because the things that my 16-year-old are into are items that I have had trouble getting into. Like, he really likes different animes. I've tried giving it a look and a listen, but it's really, I think he could tell it wasn't my thing because he doesn't ask me anymore.
Right.
So I tried to do that, but I don't think it gelled. So, and now he's so wrapped up in just, this is the first year he's driving and he has his first job. And I think he's just so wrapped up in things that hanging out with Dad is not anywhere near his top of his priority list.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm at with my oldest right now. But he's gonna need me. He hasn't driven yet. So I didn't know that in California, if you're under 18, you need to go to driving school. That's just expensive. And and I learned that I have a cousin that works at the DMV, and she's the one that told us that. She goes, no, if they're under 18, they need to go to driving school, and that's like fucking $500 right there. So I just told him, you know what, dude, I'm going to start teaching you how to drive. And then at 18, go take a written test, because no way. And, I've noticed that a lot of kids nowadays are not in a hurry to get their license. Like, I tripped out. Like there's seniors.
It's strange.
Yeah, there's kids that graduated high school from my son's friends and stuff. And they're like, no, mom still drives them around. I'm like, dude, you're 18 already. What the hell?
It's so crazy to me because I couldn't wait to get my license and get some sort of freedom and be out there and all that and not have to ride my bike everywhere, because that's how I got everywhere up till that point. We just rode our bikes, and that's how we knew where our friends were. There was no Find Me or any of these other tracker apps on your phone. It was, hey, there's, Billy's bike is outside of this house or whatever, so that's where he is.
Right. Or like back
so now to see them,
back in our day, when we lived in at a trailer park, everyone's bicycles would be at the front of the house. Like, everybody, where are the kids at? Oh, they're at Andy's house. One day, my mom always said it, like, she got home from work and she felt like when you turn on a light switch and the roaches just run everywhere, right? She said she pulled up and kids even jumped out the front door, jumped out the window, jumped out the back window. Like, that's how many kids were in this small little trailer, man. But
right?
Yeah, man, it's those days are gone, man. Those days, the whole go home when the lights turn on, those days are gone, man.
Yeah, it's over. And so nowadays they're in no rush to get their license. Everything is, wrapped up. And I understand it's a different time. I get that. But we live so much in our phones now in this instant gratification world. And it's like, it seems so crazy to me that it doesn't feel that long ago to me that I lived a full life without a cell phone. And now to see them like that, and I even catch myself on it too much sometimes. They're like, oh, I need to really step back and take a break because I realized I've been on it for too much.
Yeah.
But the world is changing quick, and it's very interesting to see, but it's also scary. I don't know what technology is going to be like in the next 5 to 10 years.
So today, I heard this quote recently that said, today technology is the dumbest it'll ever be, because tomorrow's going to get better. And then tomorrow, something in those lines, like, this is the smartest it is right now because tomorrow's going to be smarter. Or like, it's a trip, man. Technology is just...
Yes.
I tripped out a friend of mine today when I told him, oh yeah, I got the Call of Duty 6 on my PC. He was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I saw it on my PC. He's like, but how are we going to play? I'm on the PS4. I'm like, dude, they link up nowadays. What? I'm like, yeah, dude, just Fortnite opened up this freaking world where now everyone does it. He's like, no shit. He's all shocked that me on the PC can play Call of Duty with him on this PS4. Like,
yeah,
wow.
the days of being, divided because someone's a PlayStation person versus an Xbox person or a PC person, it's gone.
We're all one now. We're all one now.
Everything is cross-platform.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I remember back in the day carrying a tower computer to a friend's house to have like a LAN party where that's how we connected. And that's how we would game together. We all had to be in the same, we had to carry our towers with us. I remember having like a laundry basket and that's how I carried all my stuff.
Back in, I think it was like back in 2011, I used to rent a room at a friend's house and she got home from work and my buddy Roger was there. My brothers was there and pretty much everyone had brought their PlayStation over and everybody was linked to a different TV in the house. And instead of using our microphones, we were screaming throughout the house, dude, he's behind you. He's behind you. Revive me. Those days are over.
It's so cool. It is. And now everything is connected. And that's great. I think it's really cool that we have such cross-platform as a regular thing now because there was a lot of times where the games that maybe I was into were not the ones my friends were into or they weren't available to them. And so it's been really neat. And my kids, both of them like gaming. My youngest loves it way more than my oldest, but I think it never fazed him to not be able to play with his friends.
Yeah, my 15-year-old, the only thing we let him play was Fortnite. And then for like the last 3 years he's been playing Fortnite, and then now it's like, Dad, I mean I'm 15 now. It's like, all right, you can play Call of Duty, and we let him play Call of Duty, and then or Grand Theft Auto, and now he's like, Dad, I get what you're saying. I'm like, what do you mean? Every time we're driving around in the streets, like, I have that car. As the fancy cars driving by, I'm like, dude, that was my quote on Grand Theft Auto.
It's so cool to see that kind of transition from us to them, and some things don't change.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your wife. Only because I know the history, because listening to your podcast. But how do your kids get along with your wife? Because I asked that. I asked that because, again, everyone knows that my wife is not biologically mom to the boys. So so hearing someone who has boys that are this almost same age as mine, who live with a stepmom, I wanted to hear it from you. How do they get along with her?
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, both my boys are from past relationships, so they have separate moms, and neither one of them is related to my wife. So my wife came into our life in the last few years, and they get along so much better with her than they do with me, and it's so scary.
I say the same thing. They love her more than they love me, bro.
If they need something, they are texting her, they are calling her. They don't even come to me. So to give you an example, my youngest is now coming back from a trip with his mom. They went and drove to Florida, and on the first couple of days, I was like, I haven't heard from my son in a while.
Yeah,
it's kind of strange. Why isn't I know he's traveling, but then I go to my wife and I'm like, it's really weird. I haven't heard from him, and she's like, oh, well, he sent me 25 pictures, and here's all his status updates, and
what an asshole!
I find out what's going on with my kids from her. So their relationship is so great, and it's great to see because I was worried. I didn't know how they would take on this other person coming in and being married to me. They hadn't seen that, at least not in a very long time. And so I didn't know how it was going to be, but it's been such a great transition. They get along amazingly. My wife actually, when we gave our vows, did vows to the boys too.
Oh, wow.
So vowed to make sure to stay in their life as well and what she would provide for them. She got them custom dog tags with their names and how, something that's special to each of them and gave that to them on our wedding day. It was great. And so the love that she has for these boys that are not hers is impeccable. I can't say enough good things about their relationship.
Yeah, my boys, it's a trip because, like I said, the same thing. Like, dude, they love her more than they love me, and they clown around sometimes when they see my wife and I kind of bicker a little bit. They're like, "Well, we're going with mom." I'm like, we're not even there yet. What are you guys talking about? We're going with mom. And then I told my wife, honestly, if for some reason you and I were to break up, I mean, I'm not even going to fight it. You're keeping the boys, you know. And she has.
They were already. They were packed, ready to go. They're out of the house.
It's fun.
Like, wait, no.
It's funny because I think it was like a couple days ago, like last week, we were just going back. We're just goofing off, just back and forth. And then my youngest says something about my wife, something about being in their lives or whatever. And I'm like, whoa. And I stopped him. I'm like, whoa, bro. If I recall, you're the one that told your biological mother, can I call her mom? So technically, you picked her. Oh, something about picking.
Right.
Like, yeah. So you picked her. Because when they say that we wished we didn't ask to be here, I'm like, you won that race. So you definitely. So,
yeah, you signed up for it when you picked her. So that's
exactly.
That's on you.
So that's what I tell them. I'm like, wait a minute. If I'm recall, you actually are the one that went and asked your mom, your biological mom, can we call her mom? So. Yeah, but
it's so cool to see that relationship. I'm so glad to hear that your boys have that with her, because I think a lot of us have experienced, whether it was through our own personal experience or a friend's experience, have had these horror stories of, step parents that were not good influences or we didn't have good relationships with. And so it's really cool. And so one of the things that benefits not only me, but also these boys is to kind of give you how my wife has rubbed off on me in a good way. The way that I co-parent with my son's mother, so there's two moms and it's very different. My oldest son's mom and I get along kind of like friends. Everything's good. My youngest son's mom and I, my ex-wife, it's not very great. But what my wife has done is provided some kind of perspective now. I used to just be so angry when I thought about my ex-wife or something wasn't going right. And what my wife does now has played devil's advocate, if you will, and provided a different perspective. And so my relationship with my youngest son's mother, with my ex-wife, has actually gotten better because of the relationship I have with my wife.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, no, my wife tried for a long time. Dude, that's the mother for your kids. That's the mother for your kids. Once she saw that the mother of my kids just wasn't playing ball, then my wife's like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. My wife has a mentality of always give people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm like, no, I don't want to give her the benefit of the doubt. No. And she finally kind of like, okay, but la, la, la. And then all of a sudden now she sees it. Well, fuck the benefit of the doubt.
There have been plenty of times where I've, we've gone through an experience and I'm like, see, this is what I was complaining about.
My wife got to the point where she was going to rent a cabin in Big Bear for all of us to go, like a family. Like when you see it in TV, it's like, my wife always says it, that's the way it should be. And so my wife started looking up at cabins and I'm like, just wait, please. It's too soon. It's too soon, please. No joke, not even a month later. Boom. Told you. So, but, your wife, man, I again, only because I've heard your podcast. To me, it's very interesting how you met your wife. And like I said, you had her on your podcast. I've only been able to have mine on my podcast one time. She said it was a one and done. That was it. So, I do just give me a real give the listeners a rundown of how you met your wife.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had my wife on my last episode. Like I said, we're new on the podcasting. It's only episode 9, but up until that point, I had been doing about 25, 30-minute episodes on my own and everything. And then I did it with my wife, and it was almost an hour. Yeah. And I was like, we could have kept talking for who knows how long. Mainly because she remembers things a lot better than I do. She's funnier than I am. I can admit all of these things. But yeah, if you listen to the episode, we definitely didn't meet in your typical way. It wasn't a meet cute at a bar or anything like that. It wasn't work, stuff like that. No. So the point in my life that I was in and the point my wife was in, we were in such independence and open-minded spots in life. And how we actually met, as you know, but to walk the listeners through, was we were both on Facebook in kind of an open relationship swinging group and just looking for connections, looking for fun, and really we're trying to just kind of keep it on a physical level for the most part. And so it was really interesting. I didn't know what would come of it. It was just kind of something at that point in my life that, you know, I'm exploring open relationships and polyamory and ethical non-monogamy, and this is kind of another step in that. And is this a right one for me? Didn't know at the time, but so we had met through this Facebook group, and it was something that, you know, we hit it off, and it was like a little Facebook post game. She posted a certain color heart. You can hear the full story on my episode 9 of my podcast, but we started talking and flirting. We wound up, you know, 6 days later after we started talking, we met up at a hotel. She was only about 45 minutes from where I was, which was better than normal because she was living about an hour and a half away. So it was about half the distance that she normally was. So I met her at the hotel, and it was one of those things that I walked out of that hotel and both of us were kind of like, I don't think this is only going to be physical. I think there's more to this. And I think we both knew that something special was there.
So you guys arranged to meet kind of based on what you guys were in the group chat for, right?
Yeah.
But when you guys
absolutely.
met, it was like, nah, this is more than just physical.
Correct. Yeah. So when we agreed to meet, it was very much, hey, there's a physical attraction on both sides. Let's see if there's some chemistry. And then, you know, talk about if there is anything else down the road that we were, you know, almost like what you would want to check off a physical checklist. Like,
right.
Hey, I've never done this before. Would you be down for that? And, but when we went there and thought that it was just going to be a physical thing, like I said, we both kind of left there and said, I don't know if we just like, if it was a really good experience or if there's more here, but the way we started talking after that, we're like, yeah, I think we want to hang out more. And so started inviting me down to where she lives.
Real
I
quick.
would go down there.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Describe the hotel, the scene. I thought that was hilarious. Real quick. And then get back on point. Get back to topic.
Yeah. So the hotel, we jokingly called it the murder hotel now, because it's a very sketchy area. It's a town that there isn't a lot of things in, so the options aren't very good as far as like, you're not going to go see, you know, one of these high-end 5-star hotels there. This is very much going to be, there's probably an hourly rate at this hotel or something like that.
So I'm gonna quote my brother. My brother says, "This is where you go to lose a kidney."
Exactly. One where you're like, does anyone know I'm actually here? Like, should I have told somebody where I'm at just in case I don't come back out of here? So very seedy area. The hotel itself, like I said, it wasn't dirty, but you could definitely tell it was dated. And you're just like, are there other people staying here? Because I didn't really see a whole lot of people. Like, is this a setup? Am I going to be robbed? Those were kind of the thoughts going in my head. And I'm like, at that point, I was like, I'll risk it. I think I'm down to risk it just to see if we can do this.
All right, get back on topic, buddy.
So start hanging out again. She invites me down to where she's living, and we're hanging out. And after a few months of that, so we're about 4.5, 5 months in, her rent's about to increase, and she's like, I don't know where I'm going to wind up living because, you know,
right,
my rent's going up. And she's like, I think I'm going to have to live in my car. And I just, like, without even thinking, I was like, well, you could totally just come stay with me if you want to. Didn't think she would take me up on it because we'd only been dating for 4.5, 5 months at that point.
Right.
But she agreed, and she moved up here. And it was really cool because my wife has only known kind of that one area as far as living. All of her family and friends are there, her safe people. She battles with her own mental health demons, and a lot of it made sense for her to be in that area. So for her to take that step and move an hour and a half away to come live with me,
yeah,
to me, that was just the ultimate, hey, I trust you, I love you, I'm going to do this.
Well, actually, that's actually a good thing because I also live an hour and a half from where I grew up, where my demons are at, where and actually the lawyer that helped me get custody of my kids is the one that said, you need to leave here because you have nothing but bad memories over here, triggers and stuff. So I actually think it's a good thing that she left her demons behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but it helped her grow and learn a few more things about herself. And she said some quote to me, not quite sure I'm going to get it right, but it was something like, she's like, I have these thoughts where I want to hang out with people. And then I go to hang out with people, and all I can think of is, when can I go back and hang out with Mikey? Like, when can I just go home and be with him? And it's really cool that we just have this feeling where if we're not together, it's not really a codependency, but we just feel like everything's right when we're next to each other.
Right. And then you guys got married how long after you guys met that first time?
So within 6 months of meeting, I had proposed, and we got married just a few months back now, October 5th of this year.
My daughter's birthday?
We got married.
My daughter's birthday?
Yes. We talked about that. And so we have been married for a few months now, and there were some people that were like, is this a rush thing and all that stuff? Do you feel rushed? I don't think so. It's very cliche.
If you were Mexican, they'd be asking you, is she pregnant?
Exactly. There's definitely those people out there, and it's, but it was one of those cliche things. And I sat there. It's funny because when my wife and I met, I forgot to mention that neither one of us were looking for marriage. I mean, while I said it was just a physical thing, neither one of us wanted to get married. I'd been married before, and it was a terrible experience. And I didn't think that was ever going to be something I wanted again in life. My wife had never been married. She thought, there's no reason to it, and she had no desire. So for two people that didn't want to get married, we got engaged within 6 months. That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
But everything felt right, and I just knew at some point I felt completely different about this than I had previously with relationships, and so I felt so strongly, and it was a beautiful thing. Our wedding was great. The after party was interesting because we got about 4 or 5 songs in with the DJ, and then so we were having our wedding at a park, like a state park,
right?
And somebody from the road had driven into the power pole on the road.
What the hell?
And knocked out the power to the entire park. So we had to shut down the reception and kind of move it all to the after party right away. So it's a fun little, dad joke now to say that we had a wedding crasher because somebody crashed into the pole. So.
And that wasn't a sign, oh shit, I gotta go. I can't, no way. Because with me, on our wedding day, we're about to cut the cake, and the groom's head fell off.
Oh no!
So I'm like, should I be worried?
Yeah, I guess I could have probably looked at that from a different perspective, but it was just crazy. So I'm so glad to be able to. I love telling the stories just because it makes me laugh, and there is no part of me that sits here and goes, that this was a mistake or anything. It's really nice to feel that confidence within a relationship and go, this was the right move to make.
Right. And it's obviously she's she married you, she loves you. Is she supportive of your podcast? I mean, mine's like she knows what I scheduled. She knows where I'm at. She's like she already knew. I'm like, hey, can I sit with you for a minute? I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna get up in like half an hour. She goes, yeah, go ahead. You're gonna do your podcast. But she's supportive of your podcast?
Yeah, so she's been a great supporter. The one place where we kind of like butted heads is I wanted to start the podcast on kind of like an important date. So I picked October 10th, which was World Mental Health Day. I was like, this is a great day to start my podcast. It didn't make sense in my head to do the math and go, wait, this is 5 days after we got married.
I heard that.
And so we butted heads a little bit in the fact of she's like, I really wish you would have waited a bit more and gave us some more like newlywed bliss before you dove into this. But otherwise, she is super supportive. She really likes to hear what the episodes are going to be about. She likes hearing them before everybody else does. It makes her feel included. I ask her for perspective and outlooks. And like I said, perspective is something she brings to my life on a constant basis. So it's really cool to have that person to go, hey, like if I say it like this, is that cool? And sometimes she'll be like, no, that's kind of stupid. You should take that out. And I'm like, well, I like it. But she is so supportive. I really appreciate it. I can't do it without her help and her support there.
Yeah, mine just reminded me, so, hey, this is supposed to be a stress reliever, not a stress thing, and you're stressing out. So, cut back. But, no, she knows that I love to do this and you should go for it and knock yourself out. She did tell me, not that she's a jealous person and she doesn't know what I do. Like, she trusts me. I trust her. And I mean, just a couple of days ago, I went and met some guy that I met on the internet in person. He lives nearby. And she would have said, like, 5 years ago, that's kind of weird. Nowadays, with what I got going on, no, that's pretty fucking normal. Yeah, I mean, he's meeting a random person in person. So, yeah, no, she's very supportive. She knows what's up. She knows I like to do it. There's certain people that I have on, and she really wants to listen to those. But yeah, no, other than that, they do listen and they're like, hey, you know, sometimes they've helped me improve my grammar by listening to my podcast. And they're like, hey, Dad, it's this, not that. You know, you said it like that. But, you know, my grammar is not the greatest. So they help me, but I still love doing this. I like to talk. So, well, I mean, what got you to do your podcast? I mean, obviously mine was to voice my life and talk about my life and my upbringing. Mental health, get stuff off my chest. Is that something similar?
Yeah, so while I've been kind of bouncing the ideas for the last few years of how I can get an outlet of it, so I battle a lot with mental health and different things there. Kind of the whole premise of starting the podcast was to talk about mental health, get an outlet to get that out there. I didn't know how I wanted to do it. I had gone through, do I write short stories? Do I write a book? Am I, supposed to do something else? And I really didn't know. I saw a podcast. I'm a big fan of podcasts. Like, I love listening to them. I come across new ones all the time. I can't keep up with the amount that go through there, but I wanted some kind of outlet to talk about some things that happened in my life, especially in the last about 4 or 5 years. There's been some big major turns. And I thought, okay, well, I talk to my therapist on the regular. We meet once a week and I get to talk at that point, but it's not really telling my story. And so I wanted a way to talk out things, to be able to remember, because my memory, I made a joke earlier about it going, but I've blocked out a lot of things in life. I don't want to feel them. I don't want to think about them. And so they're kind of hidden away. The podcast gives me the ability to tell my story in a little bit of a chronological way and helps fill in some of those gaps that maybe have been locked away in that file cabinet. And so I knew I wanted to tell my story. And then the other part that came of it when I started thinking, okay, well, that'll get you, maybe 10 to 15 episodes if you tell whatever you're comfortable with. But what after that, and that's kind of the point where we're coming up to this turning point of where we're going to be caught up with things. And so the other half was lots of people have podcasts. Lots of people talk about different things. What can I do to kind of stand out or make a difference? And so I want to start talking to other people very similar to how you do and bring people on, talk about their stories. I want to hear their experiences with mental health. I want to make those conversations less taboo. I don't want it to feel like it's a bad thing to talk about mental health. I feel like for a long time, especially with how we were raised and everything, it's a very weird subject. People don't like to talk about it. They tiptoe around it. So the part of the podcast that really said, yeah, I want to do this is the more I have this conversation, the more normal I can make it. If I can make it normal for 1 or 2 other people, awesome. I made a difference in the world. So those were kind of the two drivers. I wanted to tell my story, and I also wanted to be a positive change going forward.
Can you explain the your title of your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast is called Mikey On Mute. And the reason I chose that was I feel that as we are growing up, especially men in this world where we're taught a lot of toxic masculinity, we're taught to keep quiet, man up, don't talk about things, we don't share feelings. And so for most of my life, I felt that I can't share things. I felt on mute, if you will, that I am not going to share what's going on with me. I need to find a different outlet, whether that's drinking or something completely different, whatever it may be. But I felt that I couldn't speak up about certain things. And I've talked in my podcast about how different people in my past have kind of reinforced that. Yeah, don't talk about that. You're not a, man if you talk about these things. And so when I was trying to come up with titles, I wanted to be clever and witty because that comedy part of my brain will always forever want to be up front. I love comedy. So I thought, okay, what's something I can do that's witty, but also kind of has a meaning to it? So Mikey on Mute to me was funny because why would a podcast host be on mute? That was kind of the witty part of it. But it also had that meaning of me coming off of mute to tell my mental health story.
Oh, I love that. I love the way you start your podcast by saying coming off mute, and then you end it by saying going back on mute. And because meaning you started your podcast, your episode started, and then your episode ends. So that's pretty cool. I like
Right,
the little the intro and the ending to your podcast. It's pretty cool. And I actually used your podcast as an example on my last episode because a guest brought up something similar about. She didn't specifically use the words, but I was like, wait a minute, that's what Mikey's talking about, like being on mute, not voicing and stuff. So I was like, okay. So I used your podcast as an example towards her. So, I mean, let's talk about what led you to all these to having to go to therapy and all this stuff.
Yeah, so mental health has been something I've battled with for most of my life, but I didn't know much about it or have much to go on up until about 4 or 5 years ago. About 4.5 probably. It was early spring of 2020, so right as the world is kind of going into the pandemic, but we didn't know much about it at that point, so everybody's a little bit on edge. The point I was in my life had nothing to do with the pandemic. It had everything to do with I was divorced. I was feeling like I failed as a husband. I failed as a father. I was at this point in my life where I didn't want to figure anything out. Like I felt so many big emotions that I didn't want to feel. And at that point in my life, I thought that the only way to take care of it and not feel those things was to take myself out of this world.
I believe you mentioned something about like did your ex-wife push you to also to do something?
Yes. So at that point, my ex-wife kept threatening to take away time with my son, saying that she was going to leave the state, that she was going to take him away because she kept saying phrases like, you don't deserve us, you don't deserve time with him, you don't deserve it, and kept reinforcing these toxic masculinity things, bringing up examples about how I failed. I didn't make enough money to keep her happy. That's why we got divorced. I didn't, and she kept egging me on. And so my ex-wife was a very loud voice in my head telling me that I was not bringing any worth to this world. And so between her echoing and my own inner critic kind of going, yep, she's right. Do you hear her? And so I had these loud voices metaphorically telling me to basically that there was no point for me to stay around anymore, that my boys would be better if they were with their moms full time. And I had just hit rock bottom. I was using, I know that weed's not like a hard drug or anything, but I wasn't using it in a recreational way. I was using it to not feel anything. I was using it as a mask. I was overusing it to a point that I was trying to silence all those things. So my ex-wife was very loud in my head. and I'm trying to silence it, but all it's doing is kind of enhancing these feelings and making me feel more and more like it. So I'm not in a good headspace. And at that point, I kind of come up with a quick plan. Hey, I've got this amount of pills here. I think I know what I'm going to do. I always say it's really not funny, but just my brain's so logical with a lot of things that even as I'm coming up with this plan to do something very illogical to take myself out of this world, my brain still is like, you should take Pepto-Bismol to make sure your body doesn't reject the pills when you take them. And so as I look back, it's very interesting to me to go, why was I being so logical if I was just going to be done anyway? And so there was still that part of me that was thinking. And so that kind of shows me that, maybe I wasn't at as deep in that hole as I thought I was.
Right.
But, it was a point where I was going to, take it in different increments. And at some point in between taking them, I had texted my sister. I don't remember doing it, but she tells me, hey, at some point you tried to text me. It didn't make sense. She noticed a difference in my pattern of texting or whatever it may have been. So as I'm going through the steps and what I thought I was going to do, and I got sick because I didn't take the Pepto, and it's like, and my brain was kind of saying like, oh, you even failed at this. Like it was being really mean to me. Like you can't even do this right.
Wow. Yeah.
And thankfully I didn't, but, thankfully my sister noticed that text difference and showed up at my house, was able to get me out of the house and take me to the ER, where they were able to get me back in a state enough to talk and then transport me to a mental health facility for inpatients. And that's when I was able to it was 5 days roughly of being in the hospital at that point.
Oh, wow. And
so that's kind of the big catalyst moment that started a lot of the thinking and battles with mental health.
So after the hospital, you ended up in an inpatient, right? Like a rehab?
Yep. So in there, and then I also had another stint just this last summer. I haven't gotten to that one on the podcast yet, but I have another story that's coming out later on about this past summer where I was in a partial hospitalization. So not one where I stayed there, but it was more like you go there for 6 hours a day, come back and all that. And that's a different story too. So being an inpatient the first time where I was locked away basically, and then being in this partial, way different. But that's kind of when I was an inpatient after the attempt, that's when they sent me over to a psychiatrist and a therapist, because prior to that, I didn't go to therapy. I thought, hey, you only go to therapy if you're crazy. You only go to therapy if something is really bad. And I had such a negative outlook on it. And so it was nice that they were able to set me up with them, start that trial and error of getting on the right medication, talking to somebody. And it's been a journey of ups and downs with therapists, finding the right fit. It's been, is this person too passive? Because I need someone that's going to kind of push back on me and go, hey, wait a minute, call me out on my bullshit here, real quick. And so it's been really interesting. I have a hard time when I'm in those situations because I feel like I'm not in control, whether it's an inpatient or partial hospitalization. Anything where I'm not in my own home is really hard for me to kind of give up that control.
Right.
And so that's another thing that I work on. But I know that was kind of like a long roundabout answer to that. But
no worries, man. Like I said, the more you talk, the longer the podcast goes. So, how was it being inside at the inpatient? How long were you in the inpatient for?
So when I was in the inpatient after my attempt, it was about 5.5 days I was there. I call it both the best and worst experience at that time in my life. It was not a fun experience at all, but it also allowed me to kind of step back from the world. I wasn't allowed to have my phone, so I didn't have that distraction. I wasn't around the people that were influencing me. I didn't have to hear my ex-wife's voice telling me how I was a failure. So those were the like good things about it, but it's weird. You have to find the positivity.
I'm laughing because that's the same thing I said when I was in jail.
Mhm.
I don't have to deal with her bullshit.
And so you're in these positions where it's not fun because you can't do anything, you can't go anywhere, but at least you're not around those people.
Right.
And so there was some positivity to that. But I mean, you're talking about a place where the beds are all the way down to the floor. Like, you're not going to be comfortable whatsoever. The bathroom door has the top of it and the bottom cut off so they can make sure to monitor you at all times, even when you're in the bathroom, which is weird. I've never had somebody like stand outside the door and make sure I'm going to the bathroom properly or something like that.
You never been to those fancy restaurants, bro? They hold a towel for you and everything.
I know. I don't think I have the credit for that. I really need to build that up so I can go. And they give you like a short menu to choose from because you're just going to pick out your menu for the next day, and it's like 4 things that you can choose from. So it felt very. It was just there. It was very limited, and there were times when I was angry because all you can do is you can go to group and therapy, you can read, you can kind of sit there and listen to music. There isn't a lot to do, and I love to fill space. If I'm not doing something, my brain gets very active. So I find it like now. It's something like, if I am standing around, I'll go and wash some of the dishes because my brain still has that idea of you should be doing something and using those should statements.
Right.
So to be an inpatient and not be able to do basically anything, it was really tough. It's not an experience I'd like to relive over and over again or anything like that. But like I said, there were positives that came out of it. Being able to come off of, as high as I was most of the time to block out everything else and to get away from the negative influences. It was really an experience that kind of set me on the path to go, okay, I'm kind of, rock bottom here. There's nowhere else to go but up. And how do we do that?
Right. So after inpatient, did they in a way kind of force you to take therapy, or was that a decision that you decided to make on your own? I was forced. My lawyer said, I'll take your case, but you got to go see a therapist. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So it was something where they didn't let me discharge from the hospital until I had like signed that, I'm going to see this therapist and, agreed and all that stuff. And I had to do, I think it was at least like 4 or 5 sessions, whatever it was. So it was definitely an agreement for me to be discharged. And so I saw their therapist for probably like 6 or 7 sessions. At that point, I was kind of like, nope, I don't want to do therapy anymore. I did the minimum. And so I bounced out of that. And then probably, a few months after that, it turned out to, okay, I was doing a lot better when I had therapy in my life. And so then it became searching for another one, getting on a wait list because it can be really tough, at least around here, it can be multiple months that you're waiting to even see a therapist for the first time.
Right.
But at some point it became, hey, I do better when I'm in therapy than when I'm not in therapy. Probably a good idea for me to go back. So at first it was something I had to do in order to be discharged. And then I tried to be like, nope, I did the minimum. See ya, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And just kind of wound up realizing down the road that, hey, I gave up a good thing. And so it became a trial and error because, like I said, you can find some good fits and some bad fits. And sometimes it, is working for you. And sometimes you're in a space that's not working for you. So it's been a kind of up and down. I'm so glad I got to that point, though, that I said, hey, therapy is something good. I will never tell somebody else what they should or should not do with their lives. That's up to other people.
Right.
I think as a person, just a personal overview, I think the world would be better if therapy was offered like dental is, like vision is. If it was just, hey, this is a normal thing for people to go to, I think we'd all benefit from it. Again, not pushing my views on other people. That's just kind of where I am.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that the hospital forced me to start seeing that process before I discharge.
And the one thing you said when you started your podcast because of, mental health awareness. Not a lot of guys open up, and it's like, for example, like my wife once told me, is that you have a lot of. She asked me, like, you have and told me at the same time, you have a lot of females that come on your podcast. I'm like, well, yeah, guys don't really open up, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't really like want to say much, and that's the reason why guys are with the suicide rate is more with guys than it is women, because guys don't open up. And that's the one thing I was told by my brother is, like, I get it. For a long time I hated the fact that you always talked about our problems, but I realized that you voicing everything was your strong suit. Like, you needed to. And because I mean, when I was almost about to kill myself, I mean, if I didn't have someone to talk to, I would have done it. I would have gone through with it. And so, like I said, mental health is something that guys don't really talk about. But obviously what you've gone through, it motivated you to talk about it more. And obviously, has anybody criticized you or given you a pat on the back for opening up?
I would say I've definitely heard a lot more support. There have been a lot of people, men especially, that have reached out to me through socials or whatever it may be and just said, hey, I love that you're talking about this topic. This doesn't get talked about enough. Or people coming to me and saying, I wish I had the confidence to talk about the things that you do. And I have to explain to them, like, I have terrible self-confidence. Like, it's something I work on a daily basis. But
Right.
I got to a point where it was, I feel terrible when I'm not talking about it. So if I talk about it, the worst that can happen is I still feel terrible. But the best that can happen is that I start to feel better. And that's kind of what brought that revolution to me. And so I haven't seen, maybe once or twice there'll be like a comment somewhere of someone throwing some toxic masculinity term around, or like, men don't talk about this, or throwing a slur, but it's like maybe like 1% of the response. It's
Right.
minuscule. Most of the response has been great, and I love hearing it. I talked to somebody the other day through one of my socials that was just like, hey, I'm at one of the lowest points in my life, and I organically came across your podcast. Thank you for talking even about your story. And it touched me in a way that I just had to sit there, and I was talking to my wife. I said, I can't believe it. Someone I don't know reached out to me and thanked me for just talking about my feelings and talking about what's going on inside my head. And so to me, that's the biggest driver that I'm going to keep doing this podcast, because somebody else found it helpful. And yeah, men don't talk about it. We're raised to, shut up about it. You see people that deal with it with, violence or alcoholism or drugs, anything like that. You get, very toxic behaviors because that's how we're taught to handle them. And so if I can be one male voice out there that talks about it, awesome. Hopefully that gets more people talking about it. I love to see anybody talk about mental health, but I would absolutely love to see more men talk about it. That's why if I see them on Instagram or TikTok or anything like that, I'm subscribing, I'm liking, I'm connecting with them, checking in.
So you got across to me, Like, I think, what was it, the MP3 podcast, or tagged us on the video, and you're like, well, okay, well, there's this guy. Start listening to yours, and then you start listening to mine.
And that's great, because you're the one that even told me about Instagram. Like, I had like a personal Instagram, but I didn't really use it. And I'm like, I don't know if I would do anything with it. And you're like, no, you got, put your stuff out there. And that's been such a big blessing to make those connections and get those listens up. And I'm so glad that, I was able to meet you through that. And the more that we can network and support each other, the better. I don't understand, like, unless there's a personal, like, hatred or something, like, why are we down talking anybody out there? If it's a positive message and I like what you're putting out, heck yeah, I'm promoting you. my story on Instagram is constantly filled each day with, true crime podcasts and conspiracy theories and anything else. But like, if it vibes with me, I'm pushing it out. I'm promoting that.
Yeah. Instagram is the newest, what is it? The newest, like, what was the word that was used? Pretty much like advertising platform. It's the free advertisement platform. And that's why when I saw you only had it on Facebook, because I tried the Facebook thing and I was like, no, I'm not really getting the because you can only follow people that you really know, and then if they follow, but then you go on Instagram and it's like, okay, you follow one guy's podcast, you follow, like I told you follow all his followers, you're bound to get a bite. And like I said, like we had the Spotify wrapped on Wednesday. It said that 82% of my listeners were from this year alone, because even though I've been doing the podcast since 2020, I just barely started the Instagram at the beginning of the year. So, most of my listeners were this, and from this year for, like I said, I think maybe like January, February that I started the Instagram. And, I've had more like downloads. I get your regular listeners. I get the regulars that call me and text me or whatever, like friends, and say, hey, you haven't posted one in a while. So I get those. But the moment I did the Instagram, then I was able to, I had a sponsor that found me on Instagram, and I was like, okay, cool. This is going somewhere. But again, my podcast is a hobby. If I have a sponsor, I have a sponsor. If not, it's okay. I love how you barely started and already have like sponsors. Like, that's a trip, man.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because I came across it so organically and wasn't looking for it, because I'm like, okay, I understand I'm gonna be in the game for a while before I even look at that. And then I came across the one sponsor, which is an energy drink sponsor, and they kind of are like, hey, if you want to get the name out, we'll give you a discount on our stuff. And at first I was like, okay, sounds a little weird, but okay. And then I tried it and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But so that was one that I was like, okay, it's a sponsor, but it's like not the greatest thing. And then I organically through Instagram came across the Little Jerk Society. They're a clothing brand out of New York, I believe they are.
Okay.
And they make clothing based on mental health and ADHD. So a lot of funny sayings. I just got a new hoodie from them that says no dopamine, but it's like the New Balance logo. Super funny. And the person that runs the Little Jerk Society and I just sat there and talked, and it wasn't any like business talk. It was just, hey, I deal with this stuff too. What are your experiences? And we just had a long talk about, two guys that have been dealing with mental health. And so that gained, a partnership there. And so now I promote his stuff, and he is very willing to get my stuff out there. That whole company is super supportive. And
that's cool.
It's crazy to me to be coming up on just 10 episodes and I'm already making these kind of connections and everything like that.
No, that's good.
It's super rewarding.
No, that's great, man. So, when you open up, when you post your episode, do you feel like accomplished that you did that? Do you feel bad that you said something? Or because I know sometimes I'm like, I post an episode, if it's stuff that I said or stuff I got off my chest, it's like, should I have posted that, or how are people going to take it? Do you feel in any way kind of like kind of a way?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different emotions that come out for me when I post an episode. There is a great part of me that's like, oh, I feel accomplished. I got through an episode. I edited it. It sounds good to me and everything like that. And I'll hit post. And then as soon as I do, it's like all these other emotions come rushing in. Should I have even put an episode out on this topic? Should I have talked about this? Am I, and you start to have that like imposter syndrome, like, who am I to talk about this? I'm just some guy that's out here with a microphone. And so I feel I start to battle voices in my head that say, like, you're not going to go anywhere with this. No one wants to listen to you. Why are you posting this?
Yeah.
And I have to kind of just take that step back and go, well, there is a chance that I posted it and someone might not like it. There's a chance that no one's going to listen to it. And sitting in that uncomfortable feeling of, what if that does happen?
Yeah.
Has been part of my growth. It sucks. It's uncomfortable, and I don't know, how to, maybe one day that goes away and I can feel just good about releasing an episode. But a lot of the times there is second guessing, and usually by the time that I start seeing listens, count up and people are reaching out, commenting, especially on TikTok. I have been trying to take a few like show clips and put them on TikTok as well. And it's been such a supportive, that stuff helps me. I'm trying to not rely so much on external validation, to just be happy with what I released.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely an emotional like storm between recording the episode, getting kind of stressed about it, then being proud, then second guessing, and it's just this vicious circle.
Yeah. I got past that a long time ago, man. Fuck it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got, like I said, once I got past my story, then it's like, whatever. It's now I'm gonna share your story. I don't feel bad. You're the one that's saying what you're saying, so not me. So when I heard like I didn't talk to one of my brothers for 10 years, and then he told me one day, he's like, fuck, I started listening to your podcast, and I'm like, oh fuck. Oh shit. Like I said some stuff about you on there.
There is still a part of me that's waiting for, my ex-wife or my dad or somebody to organically come across it. I don't hide it. I'm not friends with my ex-wife on social media,
right?
But I am friends with my dad and my other family. And so I'm waiting for that point for one of the people that have been included in my story or that are close to me to go, hey, heard what you said about me. And then have to have that conversation. But, ultimately, like my wife has brought up before, like what happens when the boys hear your episode someday about talking about their mom? And it's kind of been that situation where I understand it might not be comfortable for them and they might have a different perspective and perception of how everything went down. I'm just telling my side of the story.
Yeah.
I don't hide anything from them. I'm not going to say anything that is degrading to their mom if I don't have to. I'm just giving my side of everything. I'm not out here to make her the villain or anything like that. So my hope is, even though I haven't offered for them to listen to it, if they do come across it, hey, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about it. And hopefully that'll open up and continue how I keep wanting to make that less taboo. Hopefully I can do that with my boys too and go, hey, we talked about this. What were your experiences? And that will hopefully make us stronger as a father-son bond too.
And that's why when I started the podcast, I was like, first of all, I did tell my mom, hey, I'm going to open up about some stuff how I feel. So, no disrespect, but you're probably going to come up. And then, my kids, so they know that I've been through some tough times, that the way I see it is I want them to listen to it one day and be like, damn, our dad went through some shit and yet he freaking got through it, And then I heard recently that the mother of my kids is going to sue me for me talking about her on the podcast. And I'm like, well, let's go. Because I got somebody on here that says something that you did with him when he was a minor. So let's go. Right. So I'm waiting for that lawsuit. I'm waiting to get this served. Let's go.
Yeah.
But
we have the receipts here for something completely different. So if you want to play that battle, we'll play that game.
Yeah, and for most part, what I say about other people, there's facts to it. There's proof to it.
Yeah.
In my case, go to the Ventura Courthouse. You'll see. You pull up some documents, and you'll see I'm not full of shit. If my kids need to, well, wait, Dad, you took us from our mom like that? Like you're an asshole? No, go look at the court documents and you'll see that she gave you guys up. Well, they wouldn't have to because I got copies of it. But go look. What do you call it? The reporter, the court reporter, That lady types everything up. Go check it out. So I know that I have facts to cover to back me up on some of the shit that I say. But here's what. Speaking of kids, Mikey, because we're coming to an end on this. Again, I don't ask kids to listen to the podcast, because I mean, not that we didn't talk dirty. I don't think we started talking about some weird stuff. I don't think it's all right. I think they should listen to it when they're older. So if one day your 13, 16-year-old decides to listen to this, like maybe let's say in 10 years from now, what advice or what message would you give them? Either for both of them at the same time, or one for the 13-year-old and one for the 16-year-old. What advice would you give them, or what would you tell them in 10 years from now?
I would tell them that what you're going to hear me say is my journey. It's real. It's raw. This is how I experienced it. And that there are going to be three sides to every story. There's going to be my side, the other person's side, and the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure to take everything into account. And I would give them the advice. If you're listening to me talk about this stuff, I really hope you're in a place to talk about it quicker than I was, because not talking about my mental health struggles until I'm in my 30s didn't do me any good. I don't get upset with myself because my journey came as it was going to, but I would hope and give them the advice that if you're listening to me right now, I really hope you're in a space where it is safe for you to talk about your mental health, that you feel comfortable and have support. I hope that I'm in that support system. Again, this is 10 years from now, so who knows? But I just hope that they are being open, honest, and vulnerable, and that they have been able to reach that point quicker than I did.
Nice. I think I believe I told my son the same thing. I told him something similar, like, hey, mijo, a girl's going to break your heart. And before you decide to jump in front of a train, I'd rather you come talk to me first. And then, because I told him, what would, because they were born. He was born when I was about to do this stupidity. So he was like, because I'd rather talk to you than talk to your grave. And the same thing. It's like, would you rather be talking to me about it or going to my gravestone and talking to the gravestone? Because we see that on Smallville. Smallville, they do that all the time. The Lana goes and talks to her parents. I'm like, is that what you want? No, you know what I mean? Would you prefer that? No. So I didn't have no one to talk to. You have someone to talk to. And if it ain't me, you have Officer Ricky, you have his wife, which is your Nina, you have grandma and grandpa. Because I'm telling you, dude, they have a great support system on my wife's side of the family. People who aren't even blood are more supportive than my mother or their grandma, their biological grandmother. So I see them, they go up to my mother-in-law and they, grandma, 15 and 17-year-old running to a grandma like 5-year-olds, dude. And I trip out on that because it's like, my kids are the ones that run up to them like little kids when their biological aren't the same. My kids are the only ones that they're excited to see their grandma. So, I told my son, man, I'd rather you come talk to me. I'd rather you vent to me or vent to your sister, your Nina or your grandma's or whatever. And, cause I rather, like, there was that saying, I'd rather lend you my ear than visit you at your funeral or some shit like that. The saying is something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways to go about that saying, but it's very much like, I'd rather hear your struggle than give a eulogy at your funeral or something like that.
Something like that.
Again, there's probably 15 different ways to say it, but I try to tell that to my kids and say, hey, I know that I'm probably not going to be the first person you want to come to for a lot of things. I realize that. I'm a realist. I'm your dad. But know that if you need to talk to somebody about something, I'm an option. Whether I'm going to be your option or not, I don't care. But I need you to know that I'm available for you. I'm here for you. And I would much rather talk about an uncomfortable situation than have to try to come to terms with the fact that you're not here to make that talk or make that conversation happen.
Yep. Mikey, it's been a minute. I want to start off by thanking you for taking the time. I know you're 2 hours ahead of me and you probably should be in bed. But I thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast and sharing your story. And would you like to share your socials?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to first off thank you for having me on here. I know that we had a few ups and downs as far as like finding time to connect, and I got suddenly busy as we were trying
No
to,
worries.
and so I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. This has been a great experience, so I appreciate you having me on here. I know this will not be the last time that you and I talk, just in general,
No.
so I'm very excited for that. But yeah, my socials, if you and the listeners want to find me on TikTok, it's Mikey On Mute, all one word, MikeyOnMute. If you can search on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and find me there. If you're looking on Instagram, it's Mikey On Mute Podcast. And the way Instagram is, each space is kind of like an underscore. So just Mikey On Mute Podcast. It's like 4 different words. You can find me on there. The same thing with my YouTube. It's Mikey On Mute Podcast. Search me up. You'll see this, face next to a microphone, and it's one picture. I try to keep it as my one picture across all socials. But yeah, definitely love seeing the support. I'm very active in commenting back to my followers as I grow and start these conversations. So I appreciate anyone. And if you listen on Spotify, please put a 5-star rating in there. You can put comments in now. Anything helps kind of get that out there. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to let me get those socials out there.
I'm gonna follow up from Mikey there. Same thing. This podcast is on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Pandora. I think it's on Castbox. I think it's on what is it called? Podbeam. It used to be on Google Podcasts, but I think they discontinued Google Podcasts. It's also on YouTube. But if you listen on Spotify, please hit that follow. My socials again are on Instagram. Like what Mikey was saying, it's not one word. It's ride.with.me. But if you type it up, I noticed that myself, that if you just type up Ride With Me Podcast, it comes up. So because of how I have it written in my description or my bio. TikTok is FTA_podcast. And again, the hotline, you can call it anonymous. You don't have to call in so I can see your number. You don't have to do that. You can leave a question on a voicemail, and I'll download that voicemail and plug it into the next podcast. It can be a question for me. It could be a question for one of my guests. I can always follow up and call them up. Hey, if you have a question for Mikey, hey, Mikey, this person said this. What's up? You give me your answer, and then I will answer the question for them or get a quick recording of them answering their question. My listeners will listen to your voice asking the question. So the hotline number is 818-806-8595. Again, hotline number 818-806-8595. And Mikey, any last words?
Well, as with everything and like my usual podcast, this has been a blast talking to you. But for right now, this is Mikey going back on mute.
Well, you can't go on mute yet, buddy, because I have to finish mine, and then you can say yours. Mikey, like I end every podcast, thank you for riding with me.
And now this is Mikey going on mute.
Thank you for listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Indie Podcast. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean.